Did you get it?
We got it. We're back on today. In deep. I don't even know what we're doing. We're sweating it out over here in the rusty putter. It's real humid. We got Adam 2.0, aka another Tony, and we got Sabrina. It's a cloudy, nasty Wednesday here in St. John, Indiana. And we're going to dive in. We have our guest here. We'll just right into it. He's been eating apples and wrecking the stuff here. Tony Mitidiero, EXP Realty.
Hey, hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm glad that you had me here. I'm excited. I watched the rusty putter, and now I'm on it, so we'll see where this goes.
How long was the commute?
About 3 minutes. Well, Wicker, what is it? White is, they're finally redoing it. If you live in St. John, around the area, so down the street from Midwest, they've ripped the top off, and we really need a new road there, and we're getting one, but it's making traffic a little bit of a difficulty. So it's about 3 minutes versus about 2.5.
That's a 30 seconds extra. We got 93rds ripped up here too. Like St. John, all of a sudden, let's build all these houses. Oh, now we got to catch up on the roads.
Yeah, they are catching up. And as a matter of fact, I sit on our road impact fee review board, which St. John has a road impact fee, which it would have been great if we'd have put it in place several years ago, but we have it now. And what that'll do, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, is it will offset the costs to the taxpayers for the new development. So people who've been here for years, rightly so, shouldn't have to pay for the cost of some of this development and the improvements necessary to feed all of these new developments. So the road impact fee that is paid at the time of a development, generally by the development, or the person going in and building out a new commercial property, that sort of offsets things so that we continue to maintain and have a solid budget here so that we can do things like improve.
So you've been a resident of St. John for how long?
8.5 years now.
8.5 years, all right. You were from?
I moved here from Homewood. And prior to that, I was born and raised in South Holland, and offices in Orland Park, been at Southwest and in Northwest for 20 years now doing business.
All right. So we talked about St. John specifically having this road impact fund, charging developers for this. One of the biggest appeals for people moving from Illinois to Indiana is the reduced real estate tax, right? So things like this passing along cost to developers versus greasing village boards, the difference maybe between Illinois and Indiana a little bit?
Absolutely. It's a much more straightforward system. As a matter of fact, the taxing bodies out here have a much more straightforward system. We don't have a multiplier, which if you're in and you're watching this, it's almost impossible to figure out what your tax bill is, because what they say your assessed value is nothing like what your actual value is. Whereas here, we go off of real and actual value. And up until probably pre-COVID, prior to COVID, the tax assessors were actually really pretty close with what real is. And here we have a 1% tax cap that it's statewide. If it is your primary residence, we can't go beyond 1% of that. And some of the towns, St. John specifically being one of them, isn't even at the 1% yet. So things like an impact fee, or possibly even some higher building permit fees, I tell people this is like an initial, it's like an entrance fee, right? I did a thing in my garage the other day with some cool cars and some motorcycles that I own, that after I factor in 8 years of savings versus what I would have spent on the house in Cook or Will counties, it afforded me to buy all those things. And those are just things that I would have paid to the government.
I like it.
Yeah, so it's good.
No taxes without no taxation without representation.
Absolutely.
You find some tea around here and dump it out or something.
It's good, but it's not right for everybody. So the people in Illinois do probably half of our business there. There's certain things that you just can't move here, and that's understandable. But right now, with Will County and Cook kind of going up dramatically in taxes, some people have been hammered, some haven't hit it. We're seeing a lot of interest in what can I do to sell? What can I do to get those taxes down? And it can be an appealing option.
So I think one of the things that happens at Will County, Cook County, we have triennial, quadrennial, so every 3 to 4 years, the assessor is actually going through paperwork, looking at values, looking at things, actually doing their job. And then all of a sudden you waylaid because we've seen what in Will County probably last 3 years compounded appreciation 12-15% at least.
Mm-hmm.
Cook County is about the same. So yeah, all of a sudden look at the you get the Bears griping. They buy a dilapidated horse track, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, guess what? We forgot that we're tripling it. Now all of a sudden they're looking for free money somewhere else to build a stadium.
That was one actually. I found that unbelievable that nobody looked into that, or none of their attorneys. They have teams of attorneys.
You're spending $200 million,
right? And nobody thought that was going to happen. What were you thinking?
Especially has gone on with Cook County entirely between the board of review, the assessor, the treasurer. So if you're in Cook County right now, you haven't even received your second installment tax bill. Again, right. You're going to get that in November. It'll be due December.
Yeah, Illinois is sort of like the wizard. It feels like there's that Wizard of Oz, behind the curtain on your taxes. You don't know what that wizard is going to grant you or is not. Whereas in Indiana, like I said, it's much more straightforward. Speaking of the Wizard of Oz in the mortgage business, in your business, it's a little bit more straightforward as to what's going on with rates and what's going on with the market. What is going on with the mortgage-backed security market, which fuels mortgage rates?
Yeah, so mortgage-backed security market just getting obliterated right now. We talked about this right before the show. So the Federal Reserve, everyone talks about, the Fed funds rate or, the Fed raised or lowered rates. No, that is the overnight lending rate is what they actually touched. That has no real correlation to mortgage rates.
It's not direct.
It is not direct. What we have, though, we'll pull this up here for you guys real quick, is a chart of mortgage-backed from November of 2021 over here on the left side to today on the right side. So November 2021, the Federal Reserve came out and said, we're going to taper our mortgage-backed security purchases. And then by September of 2022, we're no longer going to buy mortgage-backed securities. So what does that do? That eliminated $20 to $25 billion a month of supply and fake demand, if you will.
Absolutely. And that's what really, for those that aren't aware, a lot of this goes back to still dealing with issues from, what was that, 15 years ago now? It's 13 years, 07, 08. We were bailed out of that with the government coming in and buying mortgage-backed securities. And they continued to buy them then at a greater and greater rate, bought them for 10 years. And now they've cut it off. So people who relate today's economy and what's happening in the recession are completely wrong. The metrics of the entire market could not be more completely different.
Oh,
right?
Definitely. You have the Federal Reserve balance sheet tripled in the last 3 years during COVID. That didn't happen during the Great Recession. We had TARP, we had all that other stuff to get out of there.
Right.
This is a reverse, or I don't even know, it's inverse. Every correlation that's worked, like this benchmark plus this premium equals this result, has been broke.
Yeah. So, and that also lays into one of the things that you and I both see often is people saying we're waiting until rates come back down. Okay. My position is on a couple of things, right? And I asked Tony about this before we got started here was, I said, Tony, do people come to you and think that rates are going to go back to like 4%? He says, yeah, because he's on the front end of it, right? He's talking to the guy who's planning on getting a mortgage. And I'm like, that's crazy because there is no metric that points to that being able to happen.
Correct.
Right. Because the government is pretty much saying we're not buying those mortgage backs anymore. So they're not artificially inflating that market. And then the second thing that we've got an issue with is people holding off for that. We've got the lowest supply in most places that we've ever seen since we've recorded, right, of houses.
Definitely.
So if rates come down and all these people who are sitting on the fence jump in, say they came down to 6, 5.5, and people are like, that's fantastic. What happens? What's the only thing? Like Econ 101. I'll teach you Econ 101 right now. Supply and demand.
There we go.
That's it. That's all you need to know to pass Econ 101. So demand goes through the roof, supply is still right here. What happens to price? Okay. All right. So that's something worth addressing. Right now, my friends, your friends, we have a lot of investor friends, financially savvy guys. Wouldn't you say every single one of them is trying to acquire property right now?
Every middle-size investor that I've had, customer for 10, 12 years, is trying to quadruple their portfolio right now.
Right. And that makes it tough on us. But I think the wise people, we are becoming similar to Europe in property ownership. It's consolidating. All right. So the average owner, yeah, you may not like what the costs are. Barbara Corcoran said it best as far as I thought. Barbara Corcoran said, so what? Get over it. Those days are long gone. If you want to be a player, the best they can do is put together a plan, which I find people's failure or like fear of putting together a plan stops more things in their life than anything.
Amen. It's funny. October is actually financial planning month. So it is
Really?
about time to get your asses in gear.
There is a you people.
So, I mean, we've all September, we've talked about, customers, hey, you guys go to studentaid.gov to figure out your student loans are coming out of forbearance in October, right? That has a drastic impact on what you qualify for a mortgage, but it also has a substantial impact on your actual finance.
Yeah.
So you just kick the can down the curb, all of a sudden, bam, I got an extra $500, $600 a month coming out of the bank account for that. Failing the plan is, as you've seen, right? You deal with it, right? You deal with it on sellers. You don't take care of your house. You don't keep your house clean. You're not even updated. People will buy a house that's not updated, right?
Absolutely.
But they won't want to buy a house that stinks.
No, correct. You know what, though, in the financial planning, this is not just kids, right? Don't put it off on one of the things that I see all the time is people like, well, I know my situation. Like, no, you don't, right? A guy who makes 250 grand a year, 800 credit score, wife makes 130, whatever it is. They've got the kids, they've got everything going on. Well, I know my situation. No, you don't. Do you originate mortgages? All right. Going to a guy, transactional experience, all right, is key. Let someone who knows how the market is going to see your situation, all right, overview and make some recommendations and have you ready to go. One of the things that I talk about that has become super important in the last 3 years, unlike ever before, is being in what's called the poised and ready position. We're not going to be able to take you out and show you 8 houses. This is not 2014. All right. When you could say, I want to buy a house, I like these 8. Tomorrow we see these 7. There may be 2, there may be 3, there may be none, and we may have to wait. But when that right one comes on, that is not the time to have either. I tell people, if I can't write the offer from the driveway, if I don't have everything that I need, you don't know where your finance is at, have a guy lined up, have them know how it's going to look, you're going to get outbid, you're going to lose the house, right? So one of the biggest things that I face as a channel, people think about it like it's too big of a deal, then they don't even make the call and all these opportunities pass them by. Folks, right now is the time to get your financial house in order. Once you talk to a Tony, and I mean, the guy's pretty easy to talk to, right? And they know what they're doing. All of your information is confidential. I never know what's happening with people. All I know from him is either we're good to go or, hey, we've got some work to do. But once that's set up, how long are you good at your pre-approvals for?
120 days, 4 months.
120 days. We've got to find something. And then it's pretty easy to keep your file fresh too.
Through the button, send me a pay stub. That's it. Like it doesn't take much. But poised and ready is key. Right. So we're talking about being able to write the offer from the driveway. We've seen supply, or what do we call it, inventory, at 1.36 months right now, or something along those lines, which houses are selling inside of a week.
Mm-hmm.
So poised and ready is not just having your poop in a group, figuratively speaking, but houses all of a sudden, hey, this one's it's getting bid up. We need a highest and best.
Absolutely. In the last, and this is only as far back as Tyler and I have gone, in the last 5 years, over 95% of my listings have offers on them within the first 24 hours and are technically, we can say, sold in the first weekend. All right. We put your house on a Thursday. We're in a contract on a Monday. This also alleviates some of the people who need to use the funds from their house to buy another one. How do you make that happen? All right. It's an overall financial plan. We evaluate your house. We get you with Tony. We know how much money we're going to have applied to the new house. And then we're ready to go on the market with this one, but we've got to find you that other one. When we find you that other one, boom, 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 and you're in. And these are the people that are making strides. Everybody that we did that with in the last few years, I think has been real happy with the appreciation that they've got.
Oh, definitely. That's the biggest thing. And appreciation is still happening, right? We talked about very, very limited supply, still a ton of demand. So we got a couple of things we'll pull up here too, just like, obviously we're in St. John, so we can talk about Lake County and some of the stuff we have going on there. So over the last little bit here, we'll talk about the cost of waiting. So we've talked about this appreciation between 3 and 5% year over year. What does that mean? That means that $400,000 house is going to be worth $440,000 in 3 years.
Absolutely.
So we're talking, hey, interest rates. What is the first, not the first question, what's about the third or fourth question that you're going to ask a seller when they want to list their house? How much do you owe?
How much do you owe? Yeah, absolutely.
Not what your interest rate is, right? You don't care what the interest rate is when you're going to sell. You care about what bottom line going to be when I go to that closing table.
100%. We're looking at it, whether the guy's selling and he's not buying anything again. Certainly, if he's buying something again, we want to know how much it is. So what do you owe is huge. So then what's on top of that is what you've earned in what you put down initially. Plus, most of us have some form of appreciation. So here we'll take a look at what gaining that appreciation can do for you.
So the AA approach, not for our other problems of Alcoholics Anonymous or anything like that, but we got appreciation and amortization, right? So appreciation is my home worth. Is it growing? Amortization is paying off that mortgage. If you look at Latin, you maybe paid attention in one Spanish class. Amortize means to kill off. So to kill, knock off that mortgage.
That's what it means.
Yeah. Come on, I thought. Hey, you want with one?
I didn't look at it in Latin.
But what happens is this $400,000 house, right? You buy it today. In 3 years, regardless of interest rates, you should have about $52,000 in extra net worth appreciation.
Sure.
So if I told you today, Tony, if you put $20,000 down on this house today, you got a place to live in, and then you're gonna that $20,000 you put down today is gonna work out to $50,000 in 3 years. Take that bet.
Absolutely. Nobody has a crystal ball, right? Going through the recession, how many people were waiting for the bottom, and missed it. All right. I see a lot of a lot of people like the MSNBC guys don't know, right? But I see a lot of regular people in their house predicting what's going to happen. Like if you could, you wouldn't have time to be talking to me because you'd be flying your helicopter over your private island off the coast of Jamaica. Okay. So right now we know historically property increases in value. Historically, the best time to buy into the stock market, real estate market, is when there's period oil. When people come out of the market is the time to do things. Here, we've seen transaction count come down some. However, really interesting phenomenon, we're still seeing appreciation. I did an evaluation on a property, a reevaluation on one in Lockport, a regular house in Lockport. Did the initial valuation in March, reevaluated because they've decided not to sell. They've been figuring out what they're going to do. Totally fine. 8% they've seen since March. 8%, and that's legitimate. They had a couple things close in there. All right. So costs, what happens to the buyer that's looking in there, right? He's 8% more. This is since March. Interest rates have gotten worse. So the affordability has really compressed there. All right. So this is like what we're saying, that if interest rates go down, it should fuel more growth. So a good, proper plan. How much can you really spend? The clients I was out with last night, their rent is doubling.
That's one thing we need to talk about really quick, right? So we haven't really, everyone advertises, there's all these reports on home prices, appreciation, home sales. Rent is a murky one, right? Because it's not, you don't see a lot of rent posted in the MLS.
It's very hard to determine what rent is.
But when you talk who are renting, like your customers yesterday, their rent is going from.
I thought it was doubling. I've had people who are doubling. As a matter of fact, well, I'll tell you this. I mean, I own some investment property, and I have some guys who are like, I'm not charging enough. Other guys in the investment world, and I see what these guys are charging and what they're doing. And everything's going up. That, maybe that doesn't affect you though. Maybe you're not a renter and you're saying, I'm happy with my stuff. Okay, so then the other thing that we have to think about though is life changes. Junior is not going to stay in the crib or forever. If you live in a crappy school district, I'm sorry, but it's one of the main things, right? I sent you a graph of why people move, right? School district. The school district's not getting better anytime soon. I saw a lot of people in the recession. I just say this because it was the worst time or most stressful was during the recession. I was sitting in people's kitchen tables and I had more people cry at the kitchen table than I ever care to go back to. I used to carry tissues with me. I had them in my office for people. All right. So I break down and cry. A lot of people got stuck in the wrong neighborhood for the next 8 to 10 years. We'd show up to their house. Back then it wasn't worth enough for them to be able to sell it, or just that I'm not giving it away. I'll wait. And what happened when they waited? It took so long for the situation to become favorable. Kids went through junior high, high school, and we're now in college. And what does that mean to the outcome of your life? It's the whole trajectory of a child and a family's life can change by the environment that they're in. And that's one of the things that we see as realtors, that the finance people don't always see. All right. How are you living? Who are you around? Who are your children surrounded with? Okay. So if these things are important to you, it's worth taking the time to put a plan together so that we're poised and ready. And that's one of the things I think people think, well, things are going to get better. If you haven't noticed, outside of the last, which has been sort of an anomaly, the economics of the thing don't move quickly.
No, you got, so federal funds rate, right? The overnight rate doesn't really dictate mortgage rates so much, but it does dictate prime, credit card rates, everything. That's tripled in the shortest amount of period of time it's ever gone up, right?
Right.
So you tripled people's cost of living. Wage growth is at 8%, maybe a little bit less. So your expenses now are tripled. Your wage growth is only up 8%. That's not even a drop in the bucket.
And the thought that we may unravel that equally as quick is sort of insane. I read the other day that we spent $9 trillion during COVID. $9 trillion on COVID. Big, everyone would agree that COVID was probably the biggest impact on their lives ever. I mean, nobody on this globe had ever lived through anything like that. We've had major change. We're in, I hate to say it because they use this phrase all the time, we are in a new world, in a new economy. You're not going to unravel what happened quickly. The best we can do is make some plans to move forward. The bold people, the people that I look up to, are buying property and making plans to try to buy more.
Same thing. So before we dip into Sabrina's dip here, so let's talk real quick, basic mortgage math, right? So Tony, you a long time ago, prior to real estate,
it's been a long that time now, and I hate the people that used to be like to do that, and I'm like, that was 15 years ago, old man.
So you actually dabbled in mortgages for a little while, right?
Yes.
A little finance stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went through recession, all that. Have you ever, what's crazy right now, we've never really seen where mortgage payment performance is at 98. So if people talk about, hey, one of the things I want to wait, right? The shadow inventory is coming, all this distressed property. You've sold a lot of houses. You've worked the REO world. Yeah. You're not getting calls from banks right now. Hey, how do I unload this portfolio?
It's absolutely absurd to think that your foreclosure opportunities, default rate is next to nothing. We won't have default. And here's why. Even guy with terrible credit who owns his house, who lost his job or whatever, has a ton of equity. He can sell it before it's ever going to foreclose. So even if that's the case, though, remember this, people don't take this into consideration. When we hit when we hit the Great Depression last time, banks didn't have the facilities, mechanisms, or understanding on how to properly and efficiently evaluate what their assets are worth and bring them to market at what they were worth. Well, they do now, right? All that fantastic deal stuff went by the wayside. As a matter of fact, in the last 8 years, the foreclosures that I have seen trade in the open market, if it sells in the open market, the guy paid. How do I know that? We quit buying them. We quit buying them almost that long ago. All right, because they became such a bad deal. It is really only for the uninformed. So there is no silver lining. There's not going to be a savior where the common man, the average guy who isn't really in it's going to be going out of the ballpark. Like Barbara Corcoran said, we're in a new world. There's new costs. Get used to it, get on with it, and become a part of it.
That's amen. So basic mortgage math for qualification stuff. Make $60,000 a year. It's $5,000 a month in gross income, right? Multiply that number by 50, it's $2,500. That is what a mortgage company is looking at for your total debt load. That includes your mortgage payment, your car payment, your credit cards. Doesn't include utilities or anything like that. But if you just take, or if you had 120 grand a year, so 10,000, again, 5,000 a month, that's your maximum debt load. So before you even start the plan, know what people are looking for, right? Have a budget. No, okay, this is what they're looking for. This is what I'm going to qualify for potentially, and then start your plan, right?
Absolutely, and everybody knows that. What I fear against is people who are in a financially more comfortable situation having a tendency to think they have it all under control too. A good mortgage, I remember it from when I did it. Having somebody else look at your overall everything and make some recommendations to you as to what your goals are based off of what they see can be really helpful. Don't be the guy that thinks you've got it all figured out, right? Because I've met very few, and even super successful people, the most successful people have other folks look at it. So that's where, getting with you and asking you questions. I tell people all the time, listen, when you talk to the mortgage guy, ask a lot of questions. These people see a lot of different scenarios. It can make some great recommendations to you that can change your life.
That's the biggest thing. You just never know. Like I always tell a lot of customers, hey, I don't want my credit pulled, right? So we have this thing called soft qual now. It's not a hard inquiry. You're not going to get all these calls from all these trigger lead places. And like, well, why do it? I'm a junior, right? When I went to buy my first house, I was 19, 20 years old. The underwriter asked, how did you open up this American Express in 1986? You were born in 1988. I was like, well, I'm okay. They're like, well, how about this red light camera collection? I was like, well, that's my dad. Everyone knows how he drives. But that stuff, that red light collection was a 65-point hit on my credit. That's the difference between qualifying for a mortgage and not. And fortunately, I do this stuff, so I know when this stuff is. But like name, similar name. There was so much crap that goes on in the credit world right now. You'd be amazed. Just take a look at it. Even if you go to freecreditreport.com and just take a look there.
I think there's certainly some opportunity now. And overall, I see in the next Bigger Pockets, as a matter of fact, you ever go on Bigger Pockets?
Yep.
Okay, Bigger Pockets had an awesome article the other day. I was going to try to find it, but I worked late last night and up early this morning. That this guy on there saying that the next 4 months, you've got a fantastic buying opportunity. All right, because he goes through the phases of different market cycles. All right, you'd have to look it up. I can pull it up and send it to Tony so we can have it available for you guys. But this is a great investment website, a lot of good information on there. Bigger Pockets. Actually, I used to write some articles on there years ago. 4 months is what they're saying. And I think coming out of this on the other end, we're going to see new millionaires. We're going to see some old school guys who stuck to their traditional plan, possibly go broke. Big changes going on, but it really seems the consensus is you want to be buying property right now.
I love it.
So.
All right, Sabrina, what do we got for a dip here?
We got caramel apple dip.
We're getting into fall, baby.
Y'all.
All right, it's good too. Do y'all want to see it?
Yeah, let's see it.
So it's firm.
Very firm.
Go ahead.
You got to stick it in real hard, right? You got to like your plan.
So
there's a lot of layers.
It can easily get messy. Now, this is caramel. What's at the bottom? I didn't get what's at the bottom.
The bottom is half of 4 ounces of cream cheese,
Jesus.
powdered sugar, vanilla, and then you do caramel on top with, and then that's not peanuts, it's toffee bites.
Really?
That is
Yeah.
solid.
So
I didn't know if anyone was allergic to peanuts, so I was like, I'm just not going to do
You are
that.
so considerate. You didn't even. That's planning ahead.
that is
Making
super
sure there's no
considerate.
objections. I love it.
All right, so we'll give it a shot.
All right. That's all we got. We're on here for a while today. Got all kinds of things to break down. We'll see you guys next week. Well, first we got Ryder Cup this weekend. Hopefully Team USA beats Team Europe. We'll see what happens. And I believe next week we got, in honor of Financial Planning Month, or maybe 2 weeks from now, buildplanmoney.com. We'll talk about putting a plan together. Let AI do it for you. Anything else, Tony? How do people get in touch with you?
Well, you can call me at 708-259-3734. My name is Tony Mitidiero. You can even goof it up into Google, and Google will be like, because I have such a unique last name. So 708-259-3734, Google Tony Mitidiero. I'm happy to take any real estate questions at any time.
Cool.
Thanks for having me.
Love having it. We'll have you on again. Talk about some more stuff. We'll see what happens in 4 months. He said Bigger Pockets. All right. That's
biggerpockets.com. There's a lot of interesting articles and a lot of interesting posts from people who are actually investing, actually doing it. If the stuff goes over your head, you don't know what they're talking about, feel free to give me a call, shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to answer your questions.
cool. Appreciate having you on, brother. Sabrina, thanks for the dip. We love
You're
dipping
welcome.
in. What anything good?
I don't know yet.
All right, we'll
Got
better
any
figure it
recommendations?
out. Not really.
Okay.
We'll see what we got. Bears suck. Cubs are about to be out of the playoffs.
Max Flanders came in third in King of the Baggers racing because I have no idea what he's talking about. The Riders Cup, the Bears, any of that stuff. I don't know which field goal they're kicking in butter or any of that shit.
But
What?
2 wheels.
But Max Flanders is a great privateer, and he finished on the podium last week for King of the Baggers, if you're into that, which I'm sure you're not, but there you go.
All right, cool. That's all we got. Have a good one, guys.
All right.